Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of the Unofficial Podcast. I am the foremost host, Yellow Sock. Over here we have your secondary host, Scarab's Kid. Over here we have an empty seat called Red Cage. And here we have our first and most famous guest so far, Raven Knight. Say hello, man.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Alright, I think we should start off with a question towards our guest first. What's one thing you wish you'd known before you started YouTube? Like one thing you knew about it before you started it?
When I started YouTube, the first thing that I was thinking was I wasn't going to be popular. I thought it was just going to be this kind of side thing. And because of that, I never expected to get a lot of really inappropriate or very rude comments. So one thing that I wish that I'd known was how many people were going to come after me for very unnecessarily crass things. And I wish that I'd known to just ignore those people.
Yeah, I think it comes after you.
I've responded to things that I really don't need to.
Yeah. Like that one guy who comes after you for like, you mispronounced this weapon's name wrong, so you're bad?
Well, I haven't gotten anyone like that yet. What I've gotten is a lot of people who try to challenge me on, like, I think my favorite one that I can say with absolute guarantee.
Yeah.
This one person was saying that the Orochi, or in the samurai class of For Honor, could beat knights in real life because armor is meaningless to a samurai because we're trained to aim for weak points in the armor and strike through openings, and it doesn't matter how much armor you have. And so I was pointing out to him in the comments that doesn't make any sense. Armor is actually very useful, even the samurai wore armor, so that kind of thing. So then he quickly changes the message. He changes the goalposts. It says, no, I'm talking about the world of For Honor where it's not as realistic. And so I said, okay, but in the world of For Honor, Warmonger has more punishes than Orochi. Warden has more punishes. Warmonger can do his reply. Orochi doesn't have all the same moves he needs to do damage well. And he just keeps fighting me on this. Like, it was a waste of my time. But yeah, and those are things that they happen, and I get so sick of them.
Yeah. I was about to say something, but I forgot what I was gonna say. Anyway, Scarab, tell us about your quest to make your channel name, not your channel name, your slave schedule better. How's that been going? How's your crusade going?
It's pretty much now just becoming me being able to stay up all night, and then at the moment it hits like 7, to now waking up at 9 and just being like, let me go back to sleep, God.
Yeah, well, it's working. It seems to be working because you managed to make it here, unlike the last 4 weeks.
Fair point.
Yeah.
I mean, so technically Reg is the one to blame, since he's the one that's been gone most of the times.
Yeah. Well, recently. Anyway, look, you got anything to talk about, Scarab? You're allowed to steer Rex talks, by the way.
I have one thing.
Yeah.
Warmonger versus Warden. You don't like. I feel like what's the point of Warden when you can just have, or not Warden, what's the point of Warmonger when you can just have Warden? Because from what I've seen, it just looks like Warmonger is just like Warden, but just female and angry.
Yeah, I was talking to Reg about, not Scarab, I'm mixing them up before we started recording. Scarab thinks that Warmonger and Warden are just basically the same class, but the one is a woman and the other isn't.
Well, actually, Warmonger is a woman and also very angry and a backwater man.
Well, I mean,
that's it.
Warmonger has a very different moveset to Warden. I play both of them, and I know, because if they were the same character, then my skill with Warmonger would easily translate toward Warden, and I'd be the best Warden main ever. But I'm really good with Warmonger, and I'm not good with Warden. Whenever I play Warden, I just try to shoulder bass, miss, and then get annihilated.
I think one of the things to consider about the difference between the two, from a mechanic standpoint, is the fact that Warmonger's lights are uninterrupted with the block. They are the exterior lights. And because of that, that means that her combos have more frequency of getting through.
So wait, what? I'm sorry, I'm a bit confused. I haven't played in a while.
Yeah, he lost his PS Plus. He's a very sad man.
Yes, quite sad.
Well, I've noticed if I play Warden, if I start with a light and it gets blocked, I'm almost done. I gotta rethink it. With Warmonger gets blocked, whatever, I can keep going.
Yeah.
So I feel like Warmonger has more viability with combos.
Huh.
Warmonger's lights, I noticed, they're faster and easier to chain than Wardens when I play them both. Yeah. So they're mechanically and visually very different.
Yes.
I'm sorry. From what I remember, like seeing like a few times I've ever seen anyone play them, I remember them being a lot like Warden, where it was just a lot of ouch. Oh, and that backhand. You can remember that backhand. That which was funny. And when
Yeah, just the backhand thing.
the guy with halberd, it's just the fact he's dead and our just like you. He's just completely done.
All right. I think we should bring it back to Raven. Raven, what if you had like I don't know, $4,000 extra to like spend on anything you'd like? How would you spend it and why?
If I had $4,000, I would already be at Japan. I have been dying to get over to Japan for quite a while now, but it's a money issue and a timing issue.
Yeah.
If I had $4,000, $5,000 to spend, I would already be over there and continue my studies.
Yeah, if you had $4,000, you'd already be in a lawn chair under that sakura tree.
Well, there's a lot of things in Japan that I am drawn to. A former girlfriend of mine really got me interested. And I also just love the culture, the history, language. It's my goal to have that little bit.
Yeah. So you got any thoughts on like the current state of For Honor, like how the game's going? Any thoughts on it?
Yes. I think that Marco Yolo did a video recently. That wasn't Marco. They did a video talking about the state of For Honor and how like what about it. And in my opinion, I think that the best way to say it is For Honor is in a better state than it's ever been. I think that For Honor is doing a lot better. I think it's got a lot more things going for it. The characters are much more well balanced than they ever were. Combat is a lot more fast-paced. It's very, very entertaining. The problem that For Honor has right now, though, is stagnation. And what that means is there aren't enough new updates coming out regularly to keep players invested. Like, you can play for 3 weeks, but it's slowly starting to feel like, nothing's changing. There's nothing spicing up. There are no new maps, for example. No new characters being brought. No new unique executions that draw you to a character. And because of that, people start to go, this is something to play every now and then, but I can't play it for very long. And that will not go For Honor in the long run. Mm-hmm. Now, if anybody says, For Honor's dead, they're wrong. It's not dead. It's actually doing better than it has in a while. Mm-hmm. But I think that it really needs a little bit of a boost here. I don't know if that means money or a new creative director or what, but they need some new things being released regularly besides just the typical emotes or outfits. Give us something to keep us interested. I hope they release a new map. I hope they release fusions again. I hope the new hero comes out really, really soon. We need something new to draw people back.
Yeah, I think like an idea I have is like so you know the ornaments, you get like community ornaments, and they're approved by a moderation team, so that way you don't have like people wearing around penises, and then that way you can get like your own custom ornament like bought off the community ornament store. Get yourself like a Pickle Rick on your Lawbringer's head or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, what's the biggest surprise you've had in like the last few? You've been doing YouTube for like a few months, right? So like, what's the biggest surprise you've had in that time?
The biggest surprise I've had was how popular I became quickly.
Yeah.
Like I said, I never expected to be popular. But all I did was release one video about Apollyon, and then another video about Apollyon in Astria. Mm-hmm. And within a month, I climbed from about 1,000 subscribers to nearly 4,000. And then since then, it has been steadily climbing up.
Yeah, that.
And I do not feel like I deserve that kind of recognition. I don't make videos like Beat a Neon or Marco Yolo where I'm incredibly good at editing and incredibly good at game. I make videos about history and storytelling. So I feel like it's not, and people will probably come and subscribe thinking that I release things like that. They think that I'm like another April Fools or Beat a Neon. And that surprised me. It surprised me just how many people found my stuff. But then again, I also try to keep myself humble. I don't like to make myself feel like I'm great or awesome in any way. I like to keep myself very humble and to the point where I can always do better.
Yeah.
Can I actually say this next one?
Yeah, sure. If you got any topics, Scarab, you're free to bring them up. I'm running out.
Alright. Well, one I have is just a Orochi.
Just a Orochi?
So here's the thing. Everyone just brings up that Orochi, like a lot of Orochi made stuff are light spammers. But I kind of have to point out something. It seems like Orochi's entire kit is about light. Like his dodge attacks and all this other stuff, and everything is about light. So you can't really not light spam with this class because it's all about you having light attacks.
I don't know how to play Orochi,
You know?
so all I do is hit light button. I just dodge light and normal light.
So I hate to ask, but could you repeat the question because the echo made it hard for me to understand?
Ah, tough.
Oh, yeah, real quick, like, just, I guess just, like, mute angry. Just, like, for a second.
Yeah, I'll mute myself. Wait, yeah, I'll mute myself for one.
Oh.
Server mute. I'm gone.
Alright, so basically my thing was that, like, everyone points out that a lot of Orochi mains and stuff are light spammers and all this other stuff, but, like, the entire point of Orochi is to use light attacks. A lot of his kit is light attacks. The light dodges, those, like, light attack dodges and everything else, a lot of his kit is just light attacks, so you can't really not light spam with him since, like I said, everything is about light. Like,
right. So I guess you're asking, do I agree that with the light spam argumentation?
yes, yeah.
I think that there's truth to that. Here's what I mean. There are some characters that require their lights to be viable. Like before her rework, Nobushi required lights. Peacekeeper could only do lights because their heavies were so freaking predictable. So when I think of Orochi, yes, or most of Orochi's moves require lights. A dodge light, backup, strike light. The problem and for a while, yeah, that was kind of all Orochi had because Orochi didn't have very predictable heavies. But what For Honor has done now is given Orochi's heavies more ability. And what I mean by that is, for example, the unblockable top heavy that they can do at the end of a combo. I can't tell you how many people have bamboozled me by starting that attack and then guard breaking me when I react to it. That, I think, very much helps, and I wish more people fell back on that. Also, there's the Storming Surge attack, where they step back and then do a dash forward heavy, which can come from any direction, and if it's overhead, it's undodgeable. I like those because it forces you to guess where they're coming from, and you have to be very careful how you respond to it. I think the key to Orochi is not just light spam. I think the key to Orochi is mix-up. It's being able to analyze and anticipate patterns. If a person favors the back dodge light, then you know to keep your guard high so that you can always block it. If they prefer to dodge light, then you know to bait that so that you can parry it. If their goal is to light spam, then you know to find out which area they like to start the light spam from and guard there first. You want to anticipate what they're going to do. Good Orochis don't just stick to one style of attack. They mix up. They feint. They cancel out attacks. They guard break. They mix up what they like to do so that you can't anticipate. I think that I think any Orochi who just sticks to light spam or just sticks to storm surge or just sticks to dodge lights, eventually a good player is going to figure out their pattern and crush them. So whenever players say, oh, he's just a light spammer, my follow-up question is, in what regard? Are they just hitting the light button over and over again? If so, figure out where they like to start from and guard there. Or are you saying that they like to do a lot of various lights, like dodge light, backup light, lights in general? In that case, that's a little bit different because they are mixing it up. They're just not doing it in an orthodox way. That would be what I would say.
Well, my thought process is, I only bring it up because it feels like, well, even though he does have the heavies, it kind of gets to a point where it's just like, geez, how many lights does one class need? Like, because it feels like 99% of his stuff is light attacks, and then you just kind of have those 2 extra things tossed in there, so you actually have heavies be useful, you know?
Right, and I think that is a problem that Orochi suffers from. I think that Orochi has a 3-light combo, a backup step forward light, and then a dodge light without many heavies mixed in there. I think, like I said, good Orochis can make that work for them and find good ways to combo, like what I try to do with Orochi. But yes, I do notice that a lot of people spam the lights, and I can't blame them entirely because Orochi is given so many lights with which to work with. So yeah. I see why people do it, even if I do have to acknowledge it's kind of scummy.
I tried to not do light spam, but it kind of got to a point where it's just like, at this point I can't do heavies because every time I try to do heavy as Orochi, it's immediately just gets the to be blunt, gets the crap beat out of me, so I can't really do much.
All right, we've gotten some master plays advice from Raven Knight here, gotten some top tier Orochi tips. Now let's move back here. Raven, you know, I know you're writing a story right now, one that you've actually uploaded a video on, For Honor and Glory. Do we got any story insights about that one? Any upcoming hints?
When you say story insights, you mean like information about it?
Yeah, like you got any sneak peeks to drop on the podcast?
Oh, sure. I can tell you a few things. I can tell you that the orcs that are attacking, they're not entirely working on their own volition. There is a big motivation. And I'm also going to drop that Shinobi's about to have a make roll. And we're also going to see, this is kind of obvious, but we're going to see the Warden of William higher.
Yeah.
Starting to build that relationship with Ayu Takahashi from the Amaku Warriors.
Yeah.
But I've kind of hinted that a lot. And the only other thing I'll say, that would be a spoiler, I suppose, is that one of the characters, actually 2 of the characters we've seen so far, will not live much. There will be a death.
Alright. Sucks to be them right now. Anyway, I think the juiciest hint there was that the orcs aren't working on their own volition. I think that was like that was very foreboding. Anyway, what is one?
Wait, are we talking about 40k orcs, or does For Honor have orcs now?
Well, they are. They're like orcs from 40k, but they crash landed on the For Honor planet Earth, I guess. And because they got cut off from all their WOG energy from being in what I assume is a different universe, they have no more WOG power, so they can't use guns anymore. So they're just feral orcs. I think that's the story premise.
Yes, they're cut off from the WOG inner field, and they have no experience or to teach them. So they are adapting by learning from the For Honor warriors. They're learning how to fight in medieval context.
Yeah, they can't tap into like the WOG energy.
Wouldn't that be bad since orcs? Hold on, if orcs have the ability to make anything real, I'm not going to believe it. Wouldn't that just technically mean that they just need to believe they could remember how to make weapons, and then they'd be able to figure out how to make a better weapon?
They don't know what weapons they're trying to remember to make. So like, I want to remember how to make Big Choppa, so he gets like a Big Choppa again. Like, your sword being bigger doesn't make it a gun.
Well, like, it's kind of like me sitting here saying, I want to, and I believe, it's kind of like the old time, I believe I want to invent the time machine. Well, how do you know that's the thing? How do you know a time machine exists? How do you know guns exist? You're on a world where there are no guns. You've probably never heard of a gun. So how are you sitting there going, I'd like a gun. I believe that I can make a gun. Well, if you have no context for that guns exist anyway, how can you believe that you can make one? The whole idea behind the WA field is, or the belief system, is that they believe if something they believe long enough is capable of being true. Like, for example, they paint all their stuff red because they think red makes it stronger. They paint all their bullets yellow because they think yellow goes faster. So that because they believe that, they make it true. Now, they could paint their armor yellow to make themselves run faster. And maybe they find animals in the forest and they believe that they can tame them, therefore they can. Those things they could do. But because they have no knowledge of guns or choppas or DACA, they're not going to know how to build that crap. All they know is, hey, these guys use swords. Let's make some of our own and prove that we're better with it. We've got to prove we've got the best, even if we weren't the ones who created it.
Yeah, so put more simply, it's like, I believe I can make gun, but what is gun exactly?
Yeah, the big word.
Yeah. Wait, what about crossbows?
Huh?
Couldn't they just make a better crossbow?
Well, I mean, you're not going to make a fully automatic crossbow.
Fair point.
Yeah, just the rope isn't strong enough to accommodate 50 arrows being fired a second.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, what I've done with the story is it's not just the orcs. There are going to be other 40k elements that I add. The orcs are just a major thing, but I'm not going to go too deep into that here because that'll be giving too much away.
Yeah.
But there is going to be some.
What is one common myth about being a historian that you want to just get rid of?
There is this belief that we in the historical community, those of us who love history, are just people who spend all of our time. Well, better way to say it. Mm-hmm. People like to think that history is boring, and I blame that a lot on people not knowing how to present history. Like, for example, in the Bible study that me and my brother host, we talk about biblical history, and some of the folks say, wow, y'all present that very interestingly. Y'all are more entertaining than my history teacher, And I find that one of the myths of being a historian is that it's boring, slow work where all you do is you look at old artifacts and books and say, oh, well, this must have happened. This must be something that happened. And that's not true. History can be very fascinating if you pick a topic of history that fascinates you and direct yourself on it and then build from that. I think that can be far more entertaining. The other myth about historians and history study itself that I think we need to debunk, and it's a big one, is that people assume that by studying history, your goal should be to create a conclusion and then find evidence to support that conclusion. That's not true. Like, for example, let's say that I wanted to say, I want to prove that King David from the Bible was not real. He was not a real person. And he did not. So I'm now going to search for evidence to prove that he did not exist. That's not the correct way to do historical study. What you first do is create a question. And the question could be, did King David from the Bible exist? Now, let's look for information and we form a conclusion from that. It's no different from a scientific hypothesis. You are forming a question. You will now want to find evidence to answer the question. But a lot of people make this mistake, and you've seen me do response videos where I talk about that kind of crap, where people say, history, because I don't know if you've watched any of my response videos, but in one of my response videos, I respond to it where they have a list of reasons why women were much more better treated in the past, and modern men are more sexist because of these discoveries. They walked into this. They walked into that study saying, we want to prove that modern men are sexist and women live very well in the past and were much more well treated. That's our conclusion. So now what we're going to do is we're going to find evidence to support our conclusion. And you can tell that's what they did because they picked really, really weak pieces of evidence. They cherry-picked some stuff that they thought might support them, and they failed. What they needed to do was say, were women more well-treated in the past, or were they not? Now let's go look for some evidence. And then they might have found something more interesting. But they didn't. And the first piece of evidence I can say to that is they didn't pick a specific culture. Why didn't they say people in medieval China or medieval Greece or medieval Rome were treated better than modern women in America? That might have been interesting to discuss. That might have been an interesting facet to look at. But no, you cherry-picked cultures that you thought might help you. That's not good conclusive evidence. That's not good. You built a conclusion and said, this is what I'm going to try to prove. And then the problem with that kind of activity where you build the conclusion first is what happens when the evidence you find disproves your own conclusion. Now you have to step back and say, oh crap, my conclusion is now shot, all my work is gone, and now I look like a pariah. Because quite often when you start a historical thesis, when you start doing a historical research study, the scientific and historical community is going to ask you, what are you out to tell us? What are you going to add to the history books? And then you say, I'm going to prove that women were treated better in the past, to prove that men are sexist today. Well, we can't wait to see your findings. Then you walk back in a few years later and say, actually, we found nothing to support that. In fact, quite the opposite. We found shit that goes quite against what we just believed. Now you look stupid because you had this huge idea. I'm going to prove this, and it didn't work. So I never start with a conclusion. I always start with a question and then search for the answer. That's the way a good historian handles their research.
Yeah, you don't go into history with you don't go into history with an agenda, or you're going to get bad history.
Exactly. And I said before, the greatest sin of that historian is to apply morals and standards of the present to the past. Mm-hmm. So if we say it is morally wrong to do, like, I think the big one is something like slavery. Slavery's bad. We all agree on that. We can all agree that slavery is bad. We shouldn't have it today, absolutely.
Yep.
But if you look at the past and say, well, the ancient Spartans had slaves, therefore they are morally corrupt and evil. Well, no, it's not true. Slavery was commonplace in that time period and with that culture because the Spartans were a warrior society and needed people to work the land. They didn't have the technology we did today. They didn't have the things we have today. They didn't have the morals we have today. Do not apply standards of the present to the past. Yeah. I did a response video on this to Cracked where they talked about how the Persians should have been the heroes of the movie 300 because Persia didn't have slaves, but Spartans did. Therefore, the Spartans were the evil ones, whereas the Persians were the morally upright ones. And I said, no. If you're talking about who the good guys are in the Battle of Thermopylae, in the Persians versus Spartan battle, the question is not who is morally upright. The question is who are the aggressors and who are the underdogs. The Persians are the aggressors. They're attacking Greece. The Spartans are the underdogs because they are outnumbered 30-1, at least. And you're going to sit here and say, well, because the Persians didn't have slaves, that makes them better. That would only work if the Persians were attacking to free the slaves. They were not. So, lots of bullshit there. And that's why I get so mad when I see stuff like that. When you apply these standards to a past event or a past people that you cannot apply today. I don't get mad at the Spartans because they owned slaves.
Yeah.
Because I understand that in context that works and was necessary for that time period and that culture. But in today's society, where we have a modernized society with different rules and expectations and standards, slavery is bad, and I will stand against it. But I'm not going to judge the past for it.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a good solid 5 minutes. Yeah. Thank you. I don't know why I'm so...
This is what you did with me. I get very passionate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
I'm not gonna lie, the only problem is that my brain kind of shut off for half of that, so I had no idea what was going on besides I heard the words Rome and stuff.
I was trying to deliver a compliment about how well you went through all of that, but it just ended up sounding like me being mad that you went on for so long. Sorry about that.
No, it's honestly, sometimes I get worried that I get too wrapped up in what I have to say, and so people are just sitting there going, when is he going to shut up? You know, it's like,
yeah.
That's the way I feel about that.
Yeah. All right. Do you have any pets, Raven? Like any dogs or cats that you have around the house that you enjoy the company of?
I had dogs when I lived with my parents. When I moved in with my brother, we can't afford an animal right now. Taking care of it and all that would be a little bit too expensive, but I love dogs. I once had a cat. I had this cute little kitten that I rescued outside of the school that I worked at when I was a teacher. Her name was Noelle. I named her Noelle because it was December and she was a little white kitten.
Yeah.
She was curled up by the door because it was cold outside and she was trying to warm up. I took her into the school and I tried to hide her under my teacher's desk. But she was sick. Like, she was barely moving. So once my lunch break came, I had a 2-hour lunch break because right after lunch is my planning period. So I had 2 hours to kill. So I left. I literally told the principal, I need to go. And she said, where are you going? I said, I just need to go. I'll be back after my break, hopefully. So I went to the vet and I dropped off Noelle at the vet and I said, I'll be back to pick her up later, but do what you can for her. So I went back to work and then I came back at the end of the day and I said, hey, how's the cat? And they said, well, she's got a cold. She's a little sick. I don't know what you were doing to her, but I said, no, I just found her. She's a stray. There's no collar on her. I don't know. They said, oh, well, I mean, we'll just give her over to an animal shelter. And I said, no, I'll take care of her. So they said, well, we've got her resting right now. Once she wakes up and she feels better, you can take her home. And so I waited, and I took Noelle home, and I took care of her for a good long time. But after a while, my landlord started to grow wise to what was going on, and my landlord didn't want any pets without me paying a fee, and I couldn't afford the fee. So I wanted to let Noelle live with my family, my parents, but my mom is deathly allergic to cats. So I couldn't do that, and taking Noelle down to live with my brother at the time period, I didn't live anywhere near my brother. My brother lived hours away, so there was no way I could visit Noelle. And so I eventually had no choice but to give Noelle back over to the animal shelter, which broke my heart. I loved that kitten. She was the sweetest thing. And Hannah, my artist friend, even drew a picture of her, which is adorable. Although Hannah doesn't draw animals, she drew her as like a human, so that was even better. But that's the animal that I owned for a while, and that was the last pet I had for a while.
That's such a bittersweet story, more like a sweet bitter. And that is a sweet start, bitter ending. That's, yeah. I have a dog.
It broke my heart to give her up.
Yeah.
The coolest pet I ever had was a red-tailed hawk.
Ooh.
What?
Yeah, okay, so when I was in, I can't remember if I was in middle school or in high school. If I was in high school, I was just a freshman. I was just getting started. But there was a tree just outside of my bedroom window, and there was a hawk's nest at the very tippy-tip top of this tree. And one day, I don't know what happened to the mother. I don't know what happened, but there was a baby hawk in this nest, and I thought that it was just an ordinary bird. I had no idea that it was a hawk. I just knew that it was a bird. And there was this small hawk on the branch just outside of my window, and it wasn't moving. I don't know why it was sitting there. I was kind of thinking, what's it doing? Eventually, I just opened up my window, and it hopped the hell inside. I was like, okay.
It was waiting.
Come on in, buddy.
It just kind of...
And then it just sat there for a while. And for about 2 days, this hawk just kind of went between my room to that perch. I was going, okay, I don't know what he's doing. I never figured out what this hawk was doing. My dad came in one day to ask me a question, and he just saw that hawk sitting outside. He said, close the window, son. The bird's going to get in. And I said, wouldn't be the first time. He likes to just come in sometime. And he said, what? And eventually the bird ended up flying away. The hawk ended up flying away. But for a while, he was a hawk that liked my room.
Thought it was cozy in there.
Maybe it was warm. I don't know.
All right. I've got another question. Might be my last. I can't really think of any others. But what's the biggest challenge you've had with your YouTube channel so far in the past few months?
Finding time to work on it. Since moving down here, I've been very busy with work and with church obligations and stuff like that. Yeah. And then just taking time to sit down all the time and make videos and figure out video topics that would engage people. Because if I was just making videos about my writing or about history or things like that, that'd be one thing. That's stuff that I could talk all day about. But most people only want to watch For Honor lore videos, like where I talk about Apollyon or Apollyon versus Astria and Griffin. Those are my 3 biggest videos right now. And they have nothing to do with history or writing or anything like that. They have everything to do with the story of For Honor. And that's fine. I don't mind talking about that, but it wasn't the initial reason I made the channel. So it's hard for me to think of things to talk about or make videos about that I will find engaging and fun, and that my audience will find engaging and fun. And I recognize that there is a percentage of my audience that likes the same things I do, but I also kind of want to make money. If I want to make money,
the mortal struggles.
Yeah. So it's kind of, I got to decide which is more important. Do I make a video that I love but won't get a lot of money and a lot of views, or do I make a video that I'm okay with but will make me all the views?
Yeah, every view on Earth.
I actually have a question.
Okay.
Basically, it's just that spam in general. Like, just people spamming either those unblockables or undodgeable attacks. Like, for instance, I forget, the big fat samurai guy. I remember every time I fought one of them, every time it'd be the same thing. I'd go in for an attack. Immediately I'd get him down to like half health, and they'd immediately start spamming the back break. Just back break, and I'm dead.
The hug, yeah. Okay, so Shugoki is a character that I think needs a nerf. Or at least some kind of rework, and the devs know that. That's why he was in the last round of testing ground changes where they're trying to fix him. There are two strategies I use against Shugokis, and trust me, they're not always perfect. Sometimes Shugokis get smart and outplay me in these strategies, but here's what I do.
Yeah.
Whenever I know there's a Shugoki on the other team, I pick a knight. And the reason why is because every knight, with the exception of Peacekeeper, has a bash. And a good bash can counter their charge up. In order for a Shugoki to do their hug, their Demon's Embrace, they have to start a heavy. They have to start a heavy and then soft feint into the hug. What I do is once I see them charging that heavy, I bash them. It counters them, it knocks some stamina out of the way, and it opens me up for a light or a heavy. So I will definitely play someone like Black Prior, because Black Prior is a great counter to Shugoki. I'll play Peacekeeper, because if nothing else, I can dodge out of the way and do a heavy into bleed, which means that I'm forcing Shugoki to play on my terms instead of me on his. I'll play Conqueror, because Conqueror is just made of bash attacks, and I can open up that Shugoki very quickly. I wouldn't play Warden, because Warden has to be direct with their shoulder bashes, and yeah. I've lost plenty of times trying to shoulder bash into a Shugoki's hug. Lawbringer is also a good option, because Lawbringer can dodge to the side to evade the hug and then shoulder bash. And a lot of it requires precise timing, which is why I think Shugoki needs something of a rework. And again, that's just my advice. Now, if you don't want to play a knight and you want to play other characters, I highly recommend characters with dodge-specific capabilities. Kensei, Shaolin, Nuxia, Berserker. These are all good characters that can dodge very well out of danger. The key there, though, is timing. I also recommend characters with hyper armor, so that in case they don't do the hug and they just power through with an unblockable, you might be able to power through the unblockable a little. That would be my other piece of advice.
Well, my main thing about that question was also just like spam in general, like people who either spam the bleed with I forget her name, and just all that other stuff. Because seriously, it feels like most of the time I remember from when I played the game, every time I played it, there'd either be one or two, even the entire enemy team would just be full of spamming and bleeds and all this other stuff, and it'd just be the point where like I can't even fight them, because it feels like every time I get into any form of 1v1 or 1v2,
I'm sorry, I think it's called skill. I think it's called skill.
It would just be getting going.
When it comes to spam, I said this earlier in my live stream the other day. I think my biggest problem with spam is this. These characters, all of them, have been created by Ubisoft to be unique and creative. They force players to think about new ways of playing. You know, each character's a little different from the other and how they play and strategies. Most of them have multiple styles of play. Like, Shaolin can be played so many different ways. Nuxia can be played so many different ways. I mean, They have good techniques, but you have to think them through. What annoys me about spam is not that it's toxic. That's not it. There are lots of other ways to be toxic on For Honor. What bothers me about spam, like light spamming or hug spamming or anything like that, is just how uncreative it is and how easy it is to achieve victory without trying. Like, a lot of people like to hate on Griffin and say, oh, he's a no-brain hero, you don't need to think to use him. And while that may be true, spam is no different. Because if you're a player who picks Orochi or some other light spamming character and just says, I don't need to try, I just need to hit the like button a bunch of times, and I will win. Like, what have you learned?
You've learned that you are good at the video game when you hit R1.
Yeah, I can't. Like, my brother was playing a game the other day, and he got really mad because this one guy had found this wasn't For Honor. He was playing like I think it was Battlefield 1, but one guy had found a glitch in the game where his gun would be above a sniper's rest, but his body was well hidden, so he could snipe anybody he wanted without anyone being able to hit him. And he was pissing off everyone, including his own teammates who were all telling him to stop, and he was just having a ball taking advantage of this. I couldn't do that. If I were that same guy, I could not do that. Because I would go, this is stupid. I don't feel like I'm winning. I just feel like I'm just cheesing now. I couldn't play that way.
You gotta use that mozzarella. All right, baby questions over with the play stuff out of the way. Let's get to the real questions. What hero do you think you have the most fashion on?
Yes, fashion.
Hero with the most fashion.
Yeah, brother.
I would actually probably say Warden. I don't know why. I love Warden. They look amazing.
No, like not all Wardens, like just your Warden in particular.
Oh. Actually, yeah, probably still my Warden.
Yeah.
I'm gonna either go Lawbringer or yeah, definitely either Lawbringer or my Sanhu. Those two, I think.
And Raven, what channel can my audience go to? Specifically, what video to see your Lawbringer and what was it? Shinobi fashion?
Sanhu.
Yeah, Zanhu.
But you can go to my let me see. Definitely, you can check out my Heroes in History Lawbringer video.
Yeah. And
I can send you a link with that. That one shows my Lawbringer. There isn't a specific one that I can think of where I played Sanhu recently. And Sanhu's gone through a bit of an upgrade since the last time I played him. So, yeah. But those would be the two that I think would be the most creative designed for me. But I work to mess with all of them, genuinely.
Yeah. Me personally, I think I have the most fashion on my my Warmonger, but I don't do For Honor videos, mainly because I can't record on my Xbox, but that's a me problem. Anyway, Jurassic World 3. Have you watched the Jurassic movies, Jurassic Park, Jurassic World?
Yes, I have watched the Jurassic series, yes.
How would you feel if they came back for a third one, coming in for round 3? How would you feel about that?
Oh, God. They ended Jurassic World 2 with a cliffhanger that there was going to be a third one, and I don't know if they'll actually do it. If they do, I will be very interested to see what they do. It's going to be very different. I'll be honest with you. Mind if I tell a short story here?
Sure. You can tell any type of stories you want.
This is funny.
Mm-hmm.
So I've watched anime for a while. And trust me, I'm tying this up together. And one of the anime that I had to watch for a class when I was in college was called Monster Musume, or Everyday Life Monster Girls. Now, in this series, in this anime, it was the idea that monster people, like centaurs, minotaurs, stuff like that, they exist, and they are now trying to integrate into human society. Okay, I watched that, saw it, a little weird, but I was okay with it. Then I watched Jurassic World, and I thought about the fact that Owen Grady, played by Chris Pratt, has this alpha relationship with these 4 raptors. And the first thing that I laughed at when I thought about this, and I said, what if these raptors are like these monsters, like from Everyday Life with the Monster Girl? And so I told Hannah, my artist friend, about it. Not only did she think that was funny, she ended up drawing all 4 of the raptors in the style of the monster girls from Everyday Life with Monster Girls. And I ended up writing a story. I'm still writing the story called Everyday Life with Raptors. And it is basically retelling the story of Jurassic World, only from the context of Owen with these 4 girls. And each one having their own personality and stuff like that. In fact, since we're on Discord, I will send you the cover image.
Oh, that is incredible. That is art. Is the story released yet?
I released the chapters piece by piece on DeviantArt.
Okay.
Let me see. Oh, here we go. I found it.
Yeah.
I have all my pictures that I ever drew hidden here somewhere. Yeah. Here we go. And there's the cover. I just sent it to you.
Yeah. What DeviantArt page can our audience go to find this incredible story? Would you like to inform us?
The Night Fighter.
The Night Fighter?
The Night Writer.
The Night Writer.
Like spell like writer as in writing.
All right. Thank you for that one. I'm pretty sure it's an incredible story, but
oh, it's hysterically weird, but I love writing it. So
yeah, the weirdest stories are the most fun to write.
Oh, no, most definitely. And each character, I think the hardest thing about writing the story was I had to give personalities to these 4 raptors. They weren't just animals anymore, they were people, so I had to actually give them personalities, like, who were they, like, what did they think, how did they act, and, that was hard, but I think I got good personalities down for all of them and how they all act around Owen and how they treat each other. So
yeah,
it came out.
I've watched Monster Monsume too, but not as a mandatory college course. And whenever I talk about what animes I've watched, I always leave that one out because I'm afraid that if I say that I've watched it, somebody's gonna think I'm a weirdo.
Hey, look, here's why I watched it. Okay, here's why I watched it. My class was called Japanese Visual and Literary Arts, and so we were going through all the different forms of Japanese genre and storytelling formats. And when we got through manga and anime stuff, we went through the manga and anime genres, and one of them was ecchi, which is, erotica style. And one of our side projects, it wasn't a big grade, but he challenged us to pick an ecchi or something along those lines and watch it or read it, and then come back and explain in a brief, maybe 2-page paper, why does it meet the criteria. And I had heard of Monster Musume, and I was writing a story called Monster Club, and I thought, oh cool, monsters, that's right up my alley, let's watch it. I watched it and I went, wow. It's incredibly strange, but well worth it for what I ended up creating.
Yeah, I have another question. I just thought up this one. Has anybody ever managed to convince your opinion in the comment section? Like some comment section philosopher, has he managed to sway you on anything?
Once I had a commenter try to argue with me that Astria was a fascist.
Yeah.
I argued against that briefly because I believe that one of the problems that I have in this day and age is people throw around the word fascist constantly at things they don't like, and I immediately got defensive about that, saying, oh, come on, she's not a fascist. And we had a long discussion. But to this guy's credit, he was not disrespectful. He was very polite in his argumentation, used actual evidence and resources to prove his point. And while I still disagree that she's fully fascist, he made his point sound enough that I said, okay, I can see why you draw that conclusion. So, yeah, that's one of the few moments I can think of where I genuinely said, okay, yeah, this guy made good points.
All right, so there has been one occasion, ladies and gentlemen, where Raven Knight has been slightly swayed by a philosopher on the comment section. There is still hope. Run to the comment sections. Go get your words in.
I try my best to be as objective as possible in my videos so that doesn't happen. If y'all can find more places where I'm wrong, please feel free. I know that I get things wrong sometimes.
Yeah, Scarab, do you have any other things to add? Any new topics coming from the Scarab Factory?
No. Brain empty.
Brain empty?
Yep.
Alright, Raven, if you had one thing you could change about your YouTube channel, what would it be?
That's a good question. If I could change one thing about my YouTube channel. I started my YouTube channel on my own. I didn't have any real partners or helpers to get me started, and I didn't know what I was doing. If I could change anything, I would have actually had help along the way. I would have sat down with other YouTubers or graphical designers or artists or other historical YouTubers, or actually asked a lot of questions about how they do things, how they format things, how they research things. Because when I first started YouTube, believe it or not, I started YouTube years ago. I originally started it because I needed to for a college course. But I didn't use it for anything other than the occasional response video that I did with my brother. And really, that was back in the days where I was like, oh, this is kind of a side thing. I'm not going to make anything big out of it. But then when I decided I wanted to do For Honor-related material, I didn't bother looking at other For Honor YouTubers or researchers and stuff like that, like Go-Go Danny. I hadn't heard of Go-Go Danny when I started the YouTube. If I had, honestly, I might not have started it. I would have just said, oh, well, Go-Go Danny exists. I don't need to exist. But I would have asked questions. I would have gotten help. I would have gotten assistance. That would be one thing I'd show.
Yeah, that's a pretty wise answer. Like a monk at the top of a mountain answers like that. Yeah, that's a good answer.
It's part of that comes from just experience.
Yeah. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you think that Hidakiri's heavies are 1 millisecond too fast? I don't know.
On a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah, how
that is
yeah.
too fast, or is that too fast?
Like, do you think that Hitakiri's heavy should be 1 millisecond faster or 1 millisecond slower?
I think it should be 1 millisecond faster. But they should do slightly less damage.
Yeah, like
depending on
0.5 points of less damage.
Well, I think here's the reason why. Hitakiri's best way to handle their heavies is to act like they're charging up into an unblockable, but then attack early. Because of that ability to gauge the timing, it makes them dangerous because you'll stand there for a minute going, okay, what's the timing? And then they use that moment while you're thinking about it to guard break you. And so I have had that happen to me more often than not. So why make the heavies, if you make the heavies slower, it just makes them more reactable. If you make them faster, that's great. But now you're getting into the OP territory because they can gauge that timing. So make it do a little less damage so the Hitakiri has to keep working for that damage build up. And it lets the other player have the opportunity, if they make a mistake, to back up and replan. That would be the way I handle that.
Yeah. What's one thing that keeps you up at night? It doesn't have to be YouTube related. It doesn't have to be For Honor related. Just what's one thing that keeps you up? Just keeps you turning in your bed.
Little personal for me. I will say I think the biggest fear is irrelevance. I am constantly terrified of the reality that I will not make any impact. You know, it's this idea: are you afraid of dying, or are you afraid of dying alone? I'm definitely the latter. I want to feel like the things I do and the people I meet make a difference. Like like the day I die, I will die happy if I know that at least there was one person who was glad I was around. And so sometimes I am very afraid that there will come a day or that I die and I realize nothing I did was relevant. Nothing I left on the world mattered. And the more I learn about history and the more I see how these people of the past left these huge impressions, it just makes me feel so much smaller, which doesn't help. So I think the thing that keeps me up at night is wondering, is what I'm doing relevant? Am I making a difference? Or am I just someone who's just faded into the crowd? We all want to leave our mark on history. What kind of mark will I leave? That keeps me up at night.
Yeah, that is a thing to be afraid of. I'm mostly the former on that issue. I just don't want to experience blackness forever. Yeah. All right. I've exhausted all of my topics. Scarab, do you have anything, or is this factory still empty?
Let me check the factory quick.
All right. Check those workers, see if they're working.
I got a simple one.
Yeah?
It's just, pretty much just that they really need to update the story mode. And it's just that, like, that should be a way for new players to get in and figure out the controls, but it's still using a bunch of old controls and all this other stuff. So it just feels like you're getting into the older version of the game. You're getting into the real game, you're like, well, this ain't good, because you don't know anything of the actual game. Because, you know, for some reason, the multiplayer and the story campaign are not decades, but years off, you know?
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yes, I can agree with that. The story mode needs an update. In fact, it may need a story mode part 2. They may need to just make a second story mode where they go into different Chimera versus Horkos war.
Yeah, what I think they need to do is, like, I think they need to add the Wu Lin onto the campaign map and give them their own minions and stuff. I think that'd be cool. That's all I think.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'd love that.
Yeah, me too. Raven, do you have any topics you'd like to put forward yourself? I haven't really put forward any.
No, it's okay. I think I'll admit I'm running out of the time soon. I've got to get ready to shower and head out soon. But
yeah, I know. This is like the last one.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that I wanted to ask, if I don't know how many people on the podcast or who watch this know me or what I do, but since y'all profess to have watched me, what are the things that I created or did that brought you to my channel and inevitably brought you to asking me to be on the podcast? Like, what was it that I released or brought out that you enjoyed or brought you to liking my channel? Because I know that I'm not the only one who releases this kind of content.
Yeah, well, I'm a bit of a sheep, so I came in when everybody else did with the Apollyon video, but I watched all the other stuff. Every single one of your videos managed to engage and entertain me. Like, I've watched at least 75% of them, and none of them have been like nothing burgers. It's just generally entertaining overall. That's why.
I appreciate that. That means a lot.
Yeah.
It really does. Makes me feel like I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider I've gotten those kind. I do. If you look through enough of my videos, eventually you'll find a few comments where people say, like I think it was the Warmonger analysis video where someone said, "Hey, anyone watching this video, you want to see it done well? Go watch Go Danny," or something like that. Or someone saying, I get those from time to time, and I ignore them. I don't care. But it makes hearing someone say that no matter what I put out, of the 75% of my videos you've watched, you've enjoyed all of them. That makes me happy. That makes me feel like I'm doing something good.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest here. I don't even know who Go Danny is.
Neither do I. I'll be honest.
Go Danny is a YouTuber who does historical analysis of the For Honor characters and maps and stuff. They're usually really long videos, but he does a very good job. I've watched several of his videos, and he's very knowledgeable. He knows what he's talking about. I think my biggest problem with Go Danny is he's very pessimistic. He is very negative about things. Like when Warmonger came out, after Warmonger came out, I don't think he's done a video where he hasn't brought up how much he hates Warmonger. And he's not alone in that. Like Toasty the Barbarian did the same thing. And it's kind of like, you know, I get you don't like the character, but do you have to dedicate each video to talking about how much you hate them? It's like,
yeah.
It's a little too negative.
Yeah, but all right, since you're running out of time here, do you have anything you'd like to shout out to our absolutely massive audience of 30 people before you go?
Guys, those of you watching the podcast right now, let me just say this. I'm honored to be on this podcast. This is really cool. I'm glad to be here and glad to have these two hosts who enjoy my content enough that they'd want me to be on here. I don't know if you've watched my stuff. If you haven't, I recommend you go check it out, see what you think of it. But the one thing that I want to leave y'all with, and I want to leave my host with this too, is this. In everything you do, make sure that you think it out and don't regret it. And what I mean by that is, you said earlier when you were inviting me onto the podcast, you mentioned that it wasn't a big podcast, you weren't super popular, it wasn't a big thing, but I think that even the small things can grow into something much bigger as long as you go forward with it by thinking out every step you're going to take to make it bigger and by not regretting the decisions you make, you know?
Yeah.
If don't go into it thinking, oh man, is this a good idea? I don't know if this is... Well, if you're not sure, don't do it. But every step you make in life, no matter how big or small it is, if you wanted to get bigger and better, then go forward with that go-get-em attitude, that can-do attitude. My channel, like I said, started, I did not expect to get popular. I didn't know I was going to get popular. The fact that I'm here where I am now is totally a miracle. It's totally something I never expected. But it's all because you go at it with this idea of, I'm going to do what I love, I'm going to give it everything I have, and here we are at well over 7,000 subscribers. And this podcast, though, is an unofficial podcast.
Very unofficial.
I think it's going to be great. I really do.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for coming on, man. Thank all 30 of you for watching. Thank you. This has been episode 6 of the Unofficial